It's Monday, and that means it's the first day of our The Dwarves read-along. The Dwarves by Markus Heitz is one of these books that I've had on my shelves for a while. I've actually got the whole series, so I'm finally getting into them and reading them all this year. That's the plan anyway. I've already tabbed how many pages I need to read each day to finish this in a week. It is quite a hefty book. The first day is 122 pages to read, so let's just crack on. Okay, so as you can tell, it's now nighttime and I've took myself into bed and I've finished reading the first 122 pages, which is the first prologue and the first 3 chapters of the Dwarves, and I'm really enjoying it so far. When I was reading the prologue, I was reading it earlier this morning, and you're immediately hit with so many different dwarf names, and I was a bit worried that I was going to continue on like that and I was going to get confused. And I would say after the prologue, it gets a little bit better. There's less people to learn about, but whenever you're in the dwarf chapters I'll explain it in a second, but whenever you're in the dwarf chapters, there's so many different dwarves that all have similar names that you do get a little bit confused, or at least I did. So there's definitely kind of a steep learning curve at trying to figure out who everyone is, and I think this is one of those books that actually reading it a second time might be helpful. But so far it's really fun. We have like our main character, Tungdil, who is the only dwarf in the realm he's in, because he's the ward of a mage or wizard or something called Lot Iodin. I think that's how you pronounce it. And basically he's grown up, he's nearly he's over 60, he's 63 I think, and he's grown up as a ward and he doesn't know any of the dwarves. So his storyline at the moment is like he's been sent on a messenger journey by his wizard mage person, and then he's going to go and meet other dwarves and kind of learn about where he comes from and like what he is. And it's kind of a coming of age story really, but he is obviously much older because he's a dwarf and they live much longer. We then have a few other point of view chapters. So we have one which is all about kind of the High King of the Dwarves and the future High King of the Dwarves, who is currently trying to ascend into the High King role because the current High King is quite old. And that one's really politically charged because the new High King wants to kill all the elves, whereas the old High King is like, actually no, we need peace because we need to protect ourselves from the Alpha, which are like elves but bad. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, it's really late right now. But yeah, I really enjoyed that chapter. Well, there's a few chapters, kind of few sections where you see the dwarves, because it's so politically charged and you kind of see like all the different clans, and it gives you loads of backstory about why they're doing what they're doing and they're kind of scheming as well. So they decide that actually Tungdil's coming to them, so they've said that he could be a potential heir to the throne, and we need to wait for him to turn up so that we can pick, so that they can kind of like make time for that new guy not to be king so that he can't make war on the elves, which is all really interesting. And then there is also the mages each have their own realm, and then the dwarves have their own realms, and then the human kings also have realms. So there's so many different realms within realms, and they kind of overlap as well. And there's also orcs, Alpha, who are invading, and I think and elves as well. They have their own little kingdom on the map as well. And yeah, there's just so many different things going on. I don't think I fully know what's going on yet either, but it's really interesting because it's like there's a coming of age story, and then there's this whole political arc, and then we kind of see how the wizards are also plotting something to help save Girdlegard as well. And yeah, it's just really interesting so far. I don't know if I'm fully explaining why I'm liking it so much. Let me have a think. So our main character is probably my favourite dwarf because he is the one we see the most. And I'm really enjoying his point of view because he's going on this journey, but he's also like extremely emotional and he wants to help everyone, and he wants peace, and he wants, you know, good things to happen. So it's quite emotional seeing him go through some of the things he's gone through already in this book. And yeah, he just really wants to help. So like, he sees some orcs and he's like, I need to go warn the humans. And then he feels bad because the orcs kill some people. Trying not to spoil it too much in case you haven't read it, but I feel like if you're watching this vlog, you probably have read it. And then, yeah, I just really enjoyed his kind of emotional capacity. He's a 63-year-old male character. Admittedly, he's probably written to be more like a 20-year-old male character because dwarves live longer, but he actually has emotional range and he has feelings, and he talks about his feelings. So when he says goodbye to the people that he's lived with his entire life and have seen grown up, he's very emotional about it, and he becomes the guardian of his friend's 2 kids if anything would happen to them. And yeah, he's just very in touch with his emotions, which I enjoyed. The politics aspect is like such a big thing as well, similar to like Game of Thrones. It's really interesting to see all the moving parts and like try to, I guess what's gonna happen, because I have no idea what's gonna happen. I don't really have any guesses at the moment, but I think we're going to see more of the dwarves, we're going to see more of the mages, and then we're probably going to see more of the elves or Alfar as well, and the orcs who are with the Alfar is like attacking everyone. We're going to see like who comes out on top, because there's just so many different people trying to make decisions for this country, and it's going to go wrong at some point. But yeah, I think I'm probably gonna re-update you guys in the morning when I've had time to sleep and think on it more. But yeah, I'm also reading the next, I think 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know. Reading the next few chapters tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, it's Tuesday. I've just put my lunch in the oven to warm up, and I'm gonna start reading my pages for today. I don't have any better points than I did last night. I'm still really tired today, but we're gonna read the next, I think, 4 chapters of the Dwarves. I've got my little tabs in to tell me when to read until, and then we'll see what I think after that. Okay, I've been reading up until the evening because I kept getting distracted, but I finished my pages for today, and there's so much happening. Like, it's a really action-packed book, but then it's also juxtaposed. I can't even say it. It's also like different to Tungdale's journey, because we get some of these really action-packed scenes and then we get him like wandering along the road. But yeah, we kind of reached the Black Saddle, uncovered some secrets. We kind of learned more about the mountain itself and like the backstory of the mountain. But then we go into the mountain and we find out more things. We also meet orcs, Alpha. We meet more dwarves, so Tungdale gets like his initial introduction to his people. And I feel like as a reader, we also got more of an introduction of what they're like, because they're teaching Tungdale and they're telling him things about themselves, which is really interesting. And then also, like, we finally get to the glade with Goran, who is the task that he's originally been told to do, and things have all gone wrong, and we see like the undead and the perished lands come to life. And it's just a really like, there seems to be so many like peaks of action, but it doesn't feel like it's too much, which is really good. And then another thing is I'm really enjoying the kind of wizards mages storyline, because there's so many like political intricacies, and then there's just straight up betrayal and action. And yeah, I'm just really interested with if we're going to continue seeing that point of view, or if it's going to be more on the dwarves from now on. But I'm really liking kind of, it's not just one person causing problems, it's so many different people are causing issues and like making bad decisions. And if you can't tell, I'm so sleepy right now, so I'm probably going to go to sleep soon, and then I'm gonna read the next few chapters tomorrow and see what I'm thinking. So I'm actually kind of wondering how many of my vlog videos are gonna be from bed, but I was in the office today and I'm exhausted, and the only thing I wanted to do all day, because it's been so cold, is crawl back into bed. So I've crawled back into bed, I've turned the electric blanket on. Now I'm going to read my next few chapters of the Dwarves. So yeah. Unfortunately, I did not do any filming today. I read a little bit on the tube, but reading a 700-page book on a packed train this morning, because half my trains were cancelled, was one, not fun, and two, it was impossible for me to like film as well. So I read a little bit. I'm really enjoying the adventure. Lots of things are happening, and I'm excited to finish these chapters so I can talk to you guys after. It's probably going to be another late one, but I'm hoping I'm not going to be as exhausted as yesterday. And if I am, I'm going to do another thing. And actually, if I'm too tired, I'm just going to do my recap in the morning when it's lighter, and I'm just going to in advance think of the laziness that I'm going to feel when I finish my chapters, because I know I'm going to just want to sleep. But yeah, let's read. Okay, so it's the morning now. I did fully, I finished my pages and I swear to God, dead asleep by 10:30 last night. But yeah, so I've got up, got dressed, and I'm now going to start on the next section of the Dwarves. But let's talk about what I read yesterday. I'm finding it so intriguing because I really enjoy our main character, Tungdil, but I wasn't enjoying the sections that were about the dwarves in Ogre's Death, I think it's called, and the High King thing until Tungdil turned up. And now I'm like, oh, okay, no, this is interesting now, because they're doing like trials to try and decide who'll be High King. And the chapter ending was like a cliffhanger basically for the next chapter, where Tungdil, the final task they have to do is like a random task that you decide, and each person puts in 5 suggestions for the tasks and one is selected at random. And Tungdil was really clever about it, and he put in that he wanted the task to be to go to the Grey Mountains, Grey Range, and build Keenfire, which is a big axe that is meant to be able to destroy the big bad in the book. And basically when they're like saying why they should be hiking, Tungdil's thing was, we should go and make this axe because that's the only way we're going to be able to defeat the big bad. And obviously Gundagar's is he wants to go fight the elves. So in order to get his way, Tungdil put it in as the final task, to be High King, which was really smart of him. And even like the people helping Tungdil were like, that is really smart, well done. And I just really enjoyed that he is not a fighter and he's not like good at normal dwarven things, but because he's got that scholarly, witty background, he can think of these things, and I enjoyed that. As a whole, the book is quite dark. Loads of people have died. Like, everyone has known growing up with has now died. And it's very sad, but also it kind of is a bit more realistic because wars are happening and things are going wrong, and actually like, yeah, okay, that's fair. But yeah, it's quite dark and sad at times, but there's so much action happening and there's so many like different things going on. There's obviously the orcs, the elves, the alpha, the dwarves, the humans and mages. It's a lot to like think about. I would say if I hadn't set my challenge to read it all this week for this vlog and for the read along, I don't know if I would have read it in a week because it's such a big book and there's so many like different names and different things going on every page basically. But yeah, it's very fun. I'm gonna read my pages now whilst it's still light out this time, and then I'm gonna cook some dinner afterwards and hopefully have a bit of a lazy evening. We'll see. Okay, so I've been reading most of this afternoon. It's now got dark and I finished my chapters for today before I got to bed, which I'm quite proud of. These past few chapters have been interesting. I'm still really enjoying Tungdil's kind of adventure, especially now that he's got kind of a band of dwarves with him of like differing cultures. I'm enjoying that there's backstory and like 2 of them don't get on because of something to do with one of their sister. but the story's not explained. Another one actually is from the kind of clan of his kind of opposition for hiking. And yeah, there's a lot of tension and like fun moments between them as they like have to like learn to get on a little bit. So I've enjoyed that. There are a few aspects of the past few chapters. Basically, I've just finished part 1 and then I'm going into part 2 tomorrow. And I think the author is trying to show how high the stakes are, because there's now been a chapter with the human princes or kings. And we've had a couple of chapters before with their backstory, but this chapter was very much like all-out war, like 20,000 men, 17,000 killed, very action-packed, but not emotionally charged. I didn't really feel connected to any of the characters, so the loss was not personal, which I think is a misstep on the author. I feel like if it would have been more interesting if we'd had more chapters maybe of the humans and we understood some of them and then we got kind of the fear. But because we're focused so heavily on the main character as a dwarf, I don't feel like it was quite there yet. I think it was there mostly to show how bad the situation as a whole was getting, and I understand that completely. But yeah, and then we also got a lot of backstory for kind of bad guy, Nuben the knowledge lusty, and how he kind of became what he is now. That was really interesting. And I liked that actually, like, whilst in the eyes of our heroes that they're the bad guys, but in his eyes he's actually the good guy. He's trying to protect and save the land. We'll see if that's actually true or just manipulation, but it's quite fun to see that kind of change come over them. Another thing we did find out as well from this chapter was really fun was on the dwarf side, back in Ogre's death, Belisapa, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's like the advisor for the High King to be, the original High King to be, not Tungdil. And he's kind of telling everyone to like go and fight elves and stuff, and he's kind of doing this for his own benefit, or he's got his own reasons for why he wants this to happen. And we find out some stuff about him. Our High King and his current advisor have gone and got some backstory and figured out like actually maybe his ancestry is not part of that clan, as he's kind of accusing Tungdil of it as well, so they kind of turn it around on him. So yeah, we've got a lot of, I think, bad actors happening, but we kind of understand a lot of the motivations and we're seeing a lot of backstory, which is really interesting. There's a lot of war and death and killing, which is to be expected during a war. But yeah, I did think some of these scenes were maybe not as emotionally charged as they could be. For example, like in other fantasy books, sometimes you'll have like a couple of side characters who you've kind of learnt to at least like, whereas I think we only had like one chapter of the humans before we had this chapter, and it stuck out to me as a bit odd to have it in there. But other than that, I am really enjoying the read. I'm over halfway through now. I have 3 more days to finish it, and I think I'm doing pretty good. I feel like I've read 448 pages in 4 days. So that's just over 100 pages a day, which I'm quite impressed with, because I've been reading this and I've been reading my Kindle as well at night. So I'm quite happy with myself. Good start to the new year for reading for me. But yeah, I'm gonna watch TV, to be honest. I'm feeling quite tired still from yesterday, and then I'm going to go into bed and read my Kindle for a bit. But then I'm gonna start the next part 2 for this in the morning. Okay, so it's Friday night. I've left it late to start my pages for today, and I've just double checked. I have around 110 pages to read, and it's just before 10 o'clock now. So 50 pages per hour for the next 2 hours. I don't know if I'm going to fully finish my pages tonight. I might have to make up for some in the morning, but it's been a tough day today. It's been freezing cold, and quite frankly, like my brain has just like been in brain fog mode. Like I haven't been able to concentrate on anything for too long today. So yeah, I just kept putting off picking up my book because I knew I wasn't going to be able to read it and like comprehend it. And now I've tucked myself into bed and I'm gonna force myself to read it and see how it goes. But yeah, I'll keep you updated. Morning. So yeah, I fell asleep last night pretty quickly, but I did finish reading my pages for the Dwarves for the day, and it was quite fun. We had a lot of things happen in these chapters. We were kind of back above ground with Tungdale and the group. We've acquired like so many more companions, and we made it to the Firstling's Kingdom. What I really enjoyed was the Firstling's Kingdom being kind of silent. I was expecting it to be overrun or something, but instead it is that actually the kind of monarchy, instead of a king, it's a queen, and they've been quiet because they didn't know how all the other kingdoms would feel about a dwarven queen, which is pretty fair. But I really liked seeing how all our characters interacted. Whilst there was a bit of a queen, everyone kind of got over it pretty quickly, wasn't too reactionary towards it. And then also we got a new companion from the Firstling Kingdom, and her name is Balindis, I think. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But I'm really excited to see how she fits in with the group. Obviously, a lot of our current group have either some backstory and tension or just don't like each other because obviously they don't get on. Whereas I think she will be a good addition because there's no backstory or tension there, and I think they're just going to get on very well. And she's already kind of proven herself that she can fight and that she can smith and things like that. So that should be interesting. We also obviously picked up the theatre group at Mirthandia, and Namara is, I would say, quite predictable reveal. From the beginning we kind of assumed something was different about her, and the predictability didn't make it worse because we kind of solved the problem of needing a foe of the underground to wield the axe. So I'm quite excited to see how they train her to wield an axe, and also how kind of the theatre group and Balindis and the original group all kind of learn to work together, because I think there's so many people now that they have to, and obviously the mages as well. But yeah, we're now back into the tunnels. Something's gone wrong in the tunnels again. I don't think trusting these tunnels is the best idea, although it has gotten them like all the way across the map really fast. But yeah, they're on the way to, I think, the last place they need to get the Dragonfire. I think they went to the Firstling Kingdom and they got like a little bit of backstory, but I really wish, or I hope, that in future books maybe we get to spend a bit more time there, because it's very clearly different to Ogre's Death, and Tungdale doesn't really get a chance to meet anyone or understand their customs or kind of describe how it's different, other than the visible differences as you walk in. But I think that exploration would be really fun, just to see all the differences between all the kingdoms. But yeah, I'm gonna go get coffee because it's really early today, even though it's quite bright out. And then I'm gonna start early on Saturday and start my pages with my coffee. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so I finished my pages for today, and I'm so annoyed because the chapter has literally dropped as a cliffhanger. So I have only like the final, I think it's 4 or 5 chapters to go. But I'm on part 2, chapter 8. And then I think it only goes to, 3 more chapters to go, right at the end of the book. Cliffhanger at the last chapter. So basically we're going into the final battle now. And I'm kind of annoyed with myself because I planned this read along and now I have to wait till tomorrow to find out what happens. And I kind of just want to keep reading. And I have the rest of the day to do so. But whatever. It's been so good so far because basically things just kept going wrong, and I was like, how are they going to do this? But then things also kept falling into place. So they've made it to the Fifling's Kingdom, and they've made it to the forge, and they lost the fire, they lost the ingots, they lost one of the party members who was like meant to help make the weapon, and thankfully they had all of those things around just in case. They're making the weapon now, but there's also loads of like orcs and Alfar outside who are trying to like bust down the walls and door and get to them and stop them from it, which is interesting. But yeah, I'm so annoyed. I want to read more. Can I read more? Just ignore tomorrow. I don't know. I'm going to read a different book, I think, this afternoon. But yeah, it's lunchtime now, so I'm gonna go make some lunch, maybe make a cake, and ignore my book until tomorrow. But it's really good so far. I'm really excited to see how it all ends. Okay, it's Sunday. I woke up, I wrote my to-do list, had a coffee, and before I start doing anything around the house, I'm gonna read the final chapters of The Dwarves. I'm really excited. I'm so annoyed at the cliffhanger yesterday because I really wanted to continue reading. So first thing I'm doing today is finish reading this book. So let's go. Okay, so I finished The Dwarves and I loved the final few chapters. It was indeed the final battle. Our dwarf characters made it to the Black Saddle, which we were at the beginning of the book, which was perfect as a book ending. We also found out, I think it's kind of not predictable, but you knew it was going to happen from kind of the beginning. There was a lot of foreshadowing, and we found out that actually Tungdil was a thirdling and therefore an enemy of the dwarves, therefore he could use the axe in the end. We also got a big final battle. Everyone kind of was fighting. There was lots of tensions. Namora, I think that's the right name, was like fighting the major. Sen got like stabbed. Fergus was also injured. Our dwarves were fighting for their lives. It was a really good kind of, there was a lot of build up. So many different things were happening at once. Like I might have to read it like a second time in a few years' time maybe, just to kind of get all of the little bits that are in there. One thing I did like was that after the final battle, we actually had like all the leaders of all the different races. They actually like kind of sat down and was like, we're going to be peaceful and we're going to work together. There's also a little bit of a leading question of, was the Magus right? Is there actually something in the West that's going to come and harm Godogard? I assume we'll find out in the next few books if that is the case and what's happening. And a classic meteor going across as an omen of the sky. So it's definitely intriguing. I'm happy that all of the humans, the one mage we have, dwarves, elves, are all kind of like getting on now and like learning to work together. I also hope we get to see in the next book Tungdil go to the Thirdlings Kingdom and find out what happens with them and if like they actually are like dwarf haters. But yeah, it was a really fun read. It's a long read. I'm surprised I got through it all in a week. Maybe wouldn't recommend it in a week for everyone, probably a few weeks at least for some people. But yeah, it was fun. One of the things I really loved actually was Tungdil shows emotions, and it's not just like he says he's emotional, like we actually see him crying and showing like clear emotions when he's talking to other people. He cries over the death of his friends. When they leave Vavragor in the Fifthling Kingdom to kind of hold the fort down once they escape, they cry over that and like really show like why it's important to show those emotions. Even Boindale, who is our like resident warrior, wants to kill everything. Even he kind of tears up when he finds out what Vavragor said about him, about kind of not forgiving him but understanding it wasn't his fault about his sister. But yeah, I just love it when our characters, our male characters specifically, can show emotions and it's not seen as a weakness. Even in the dwarf, I guess, society is very male centric. Whilst we do have some female dwarves, the male dwarves are the warriors, they're the smiths, they're the like fighters, but they're still allowed to kind of cry and be emotional about things, which it's refreshing because you don't often see that in a lot of fantasy books. We often see these big warriors who are very stoic and they don't show emotion and they are, I guess, a little bit emotionally repressed. So that was good. I really enjoyed all the characters in this book. It was definitely, our main character was Tungdil, but it was kind of like an ensemble cast, especially as we were going back and forth between different kingdoms to get like the backstory of different reasonings for the humans to do stuff, the mages to do stuff, the other dwarves to do stuff. But I definitely liked that we then, by the end of the book, we very much followed Tungdil and his kind of group of people, and that really like pulled you along right to the end. And now I don't really know what to do with myself because it's only around midday. I probably need to get lunch, but then I'm probably going to sit and like have a think about all my thoughts from the entire book and write a review. But I would definitely, for any fantasy fans who want to read more about dwarves, I would recommend this book. The dwarves themselves are very like reminiscent of like Lord of the Rings dwarves and dwarves from other media that we see. However, they do have their differences, and we do have different clans, and each of the clans is very distinct as well. Boindil and Bavrigor Secondlands, they're very different to the Shimmerbeard, very different to the firstlings that we meet along the way, and then the fifthlings we see at the end of the book. They all have different kind of talents. So yeah, if you want to read more dwarves, the dwarves is obviously the way to go. If you're a big fan of epic fantasy, I think this series will be good as well. But yeah, I'm gonna go and think and actually like write down my thoughts a bit more coherent than what I just said. And I will see you in the next vlog.